So this guy hit me up once saying, "Those lips." And then he was like, "What the mouth do?" And I was like, well, what this mouth does is yapping. And by yapping, I mean creating a fun dialogue between fashion, pop culture, and anything else in between. And where, you might ask? Here on YouTube, in the Spoiled channel. Hello bratties, my name is Odjuani and welcome back to the Spoiled channel. The makeup brand Youthforia is under fire after a famous beauty content creator, Gloria George, tested their darkest foundation shade, the shade 600.
Which side of my face is the black face paint or the Youthforia foundation? T, you can't tell. You know why? Tar in a bottle. This is jet black face paint and this is the darkest shade of the Youthforia Date Night foundation. This is black face paint. This is the darkest shade of the Youthforia foundation. I'm gonna apply some of the foundation on this side of my face so you guys can see. Let's just go ahead and try to blend this out, you guys. Enough. Who is that color?
And that's not the first time Youthforia has been facing backlash. Last year, they were criticized for not being inclusive with the release of their Dark 9 skin tint line.
Hey beautiful people, let's talk about the disaster of the release of the foundation from Youthforia. Their foundation release was this. Only 15 shades. And people are very frustrated because the dispersion of the shades was not inclusive. Also, many people feel as though the pictures are edited. They sent out their shades to some people. And some people received the foundation and it was the darkest shade in the collection, $4.95, and it was too light for them. People are very frustrated with this whole situation. They feel as though this is not inclusive. And although brands can release smaller collections when they're a smaller brand, the last 5 shades should not be the only dark shades.
And now trying to right their wrong by adding more shades to their line, they have been facing even more backlash. But the thing is that this whole controversy around Youthforia has sparked a discussion about makeup and skin tones. Because a lot of people seem to think that this awful foundation that Youthforia released actually is okay. Even though the foundation is pitch black and no one actually is pitch black. So I took this as an opportunity to make a video talking about the history of makeup made for black people and this Youthforia mess as well.
Believe it or not, the heifer is 62 years old. But she looks good. And if you want to look like this when you're 62, I suggest that you purchase some Yvonne. Come on, baby.
So the history of makeup for black people dates back to 1898, when Anthony Overton, a lawyer and a businessman with a degree in chemistry, opened the Overton Hygienic Manufacturing Company in Kansas, United States. Initially selling baking powder and other products, Overton noticed the lack of makeup products that match the skin tones of women of color, so he decided to come up with a face powder called... Okay, I kept saying highbrow in this video, but it's actually high brown. Called Highbrow La Petite. The Highbrow face powder would be a major success in the US, Egypt, and Liberia. Overton would expand his business to Chicago by making more makeup products, and even step into hair care by making hair creams. His successful face powder would get variations to lighter and darker shades such as nut brown, olive tone, brunette, and fresh pink. Eventually, Overton would become the first African American to lead a major business conglomerate. In the 1920s, singer Anita Patty Brown would also launch her cosmetic business for women of color. Patty's Brazilian Toilette Luxuries, a mail-order business selling perfumes, creams, and Patty's La Traviata face powder. Unfortunately, her business wouldn't last that long, but you might say that she was the first black celebrity to step into the makeup industry targeting black women. Other black women entrepreneurs would also step into the makeup industry, such as the famous Madam C.J. Walker, who would sell face powders as well. By the late 1920s, more specifically 1926, Jewish-Hungarian American Morton Newman and wife Rose Newman would establish the Valmore Products Company, largely targeting black customers. The company produced powders and created the beauty brands Sweet Georgia Brown, Lucky Brown, and Madame Jones to sell them. The brands were famous for its stylized illustrations in their advertisements. However, even though they were illustrated by black men, they were extremely colorists. They mostly depicted racially ambiguous women and promoted products that would brighten up the skin rather than match the skin tone. In fact, all of these brands were about pushing colorism, saying that their powder was specifically made to give tan and dark complexions the brighter, attractive beauty that everybody admires. Ew! Also, back in 1923, two Jewish chemists called Joseph Menke and Morris Shapiro would open up the Keystone Laboratories in Memphis, Tennessee. The two would later split up, and Shapiro would open up the Lucky Heart Laboratories in 1935. Lucky Heart Laboratories would make makeup products for black women and use sales representatives to sell these products, since department stores at the time denied the entry of black people and therefore the entry of black products as well. I don't know about Keystone Laboratories, but Lucky Heart still is active to this day by selling perfumes and skincare and hair care products. Around the same time, other companies such as Hi-Hat, also from Memphis, would also release their Hi-Hat's Jockey Club face powder, coming in hues such as Spanish Rose, Chocolate Brown, and Copper Bronze. These names. With the civil rights movement making historical changes in the United States, the segregation of makeup would end and lead to companies such as Maybelline and Avon to adopt inclusivity in their makeup lines. According to Susanna Walker's book, Style and Stylist Selling Beauty to African American Women, Avon would have ads featuring black models in Ebony magazine in 1961. In the last 5 years of the 60s, half a dozen cosmetic lines for black women were launched, one of them being Florrie Roberts, founded by Florrie Roberts herself. The company prides itself to this day as being the first brand of cosmetics for women of color to be sold in major department stores. Fast forward to 1973, Eunice Johnson, businesswoman and wife of Ebony and Jet magazine publisher John H. Johnson, created Fashion Fair Cosmetics. And that's all because during the annual fashion show for Ebony Fashion Fair featuring black designers and black models, Eunice faced difficulties finding makeup suitable for models, finding the models themselves mixing their own pigments to create shades to match their skin tones. Eunice had approached large makeup corporations like Revlon before starting her own brand to encourage them to create more shades, but they all turned her down. Fashion Fair would eventually become the largest black-owned makeup company.
Before Fashion Fair, after Fashion Fair. Fashionable women everywhere know that beautiful looks happen with Fashion Fair Cosmetics.
Fast forward to 1994, the legendary supermodel Iman, who would bring her own makeup during photo shoot sessions in the 70s, would launch her own makeup line called Iman Cosmetics.
At that photo shoot, I walked in and there was another model on the shoot, and she was Caucasian. And the makeup artist asked me, and I was, by the way, I was then 19 years old. He asked me specifically, did you bring your own foundation? But it wasn't lost on me that he didn't ask that question to the Caucasian girl. Mm-hmm. So I thought something, because I had no idea what he was talking about. I didn't even know what foundation was. So then he proceeded to mix and match some products and put it on my face. And I looked in the mirror and I looked gray. I looked horribly gray, my skin. And so what saved my career, because that was my first shoot, what saved my career was that the photographs were actually black and white, But what I did was that I made it my job to find something that was suitable for my skin. So, and I mixed products and put it on my face. And I took a Polaroid camera and I took pictures so I could see how will it translate. That was the seed that was implanted in my head, that I have to take control of my own image. Without, and I never went to a fashion shoot without a foundation from then on. And then when I retired in 1989, and I created in 1994 Iman Cosmetics for women with skin of color.
In the same year, the makeup brand Black Opal Beauty was founded by Greek chemist Nico Muyeris, who created the brand to find makeup solutions for his Jamaican wife, Carol. The brand focused on addressing concerns such as hyperpigmentation and providing shade matching options. Florrie Roberts, Black Opal Beauty, and Iman Cosmetics are still active to this day. And even Fashion Fair came back in 2022 after filing for bankruptcy in 2018. However, when it came to the new millennium, things were still difficult to accurately address the issues that people of color have been facing when it came to makeup products. Even if big corporations were inclusive at the time, small black-owned businesses trying to enter the makeup industry were also having difficulties competing with the big ones run by white people. In the book Style and Status, Selling Beauty to African American Women by Susanna Walker, she said, a 2002 report in the Chicago Tribune reported that remaining small black companies were struggling to maintain market share, some banking on direct sales to salons rather than fighting for shelf space in chain drugstores. In 2006, The Village Voice ran interviews of two prominent African American celebrity makeup artists. Both complained that though white companies were making a big show of offering products to black women, using megastars like Halle Berry or Revlon as spokespeople, in many cases these companies still failed, especially in the areas of foundation and concealers, to manufacture products that worked. Yet the makeup artists deemed black companies' products too old-fashioned in terms of packaging or shade choices. Fashion Fair was cited as an example, or too difficult to find in major department stores. Even MAC Cosmetics, the upscale company famous for deliberately creating generally multiracial makeup colors and product lines, was blasted in the article for marketing foundations that look wrong on the dark complexions that they had supposedly been designed for. In 2012, Melissa Butler started her own company called The Lip Bar. The Lip Bar had the goal of creating clean, high-performing lipsticks that flatter all skin tones. In 2015, Melissa had her company denied investors in the popular show Shark Tank.
It's difficult for women of all these different complexions and undertones to find colors that are perfect for them. We decided to create this app where customers can easily log on, create their own custom color from these 10 shades.
Keep this show in mind because it's gonna come up later on in this video. But that didn't stop Melissa from succeeding with her company. The Lip Bar is now sold in Target stores in the US with a flagship store in Detroit. And in 2017, Rihanna went into the makeup industry and changed the whole game.
Everybody knows concealer's made for hiding bags and dark circles and hangovers and bad decisions.
Rihanna launched the Fenty Beauty in September 2017 with a groundbreaking range of 40 foundation shades and creating a new standard of inclusion. And this is what she said about her makeup brand in 2017 for Refinery 29. That was really important for me. In every product, I was like, there needs to be something for a dark-skinned girl. There needs to be something for a real pale girl. There needs to be something in between. The makeup brand was an instant success. It reportedly made $100 million in just over a month. Time magazine named it one of the 25 inventions of the year. The makeup industry was taken by storm with Fenty Beauty. The brand inclusion caused the Fenty Effect, since other makeup brands would rush into releasing more diverse shade ranges in their lines. And just last month, Rihanna launched a new foundation line with 50 shades. And this is what makeup lines are doing now. They're releasing 50 foundation shades, 60 foundation shades, and even 100 foundation shades. Except Youthforia.
Hey, there's my guy.
Black?
It's actually pronounced Zach.
The brand Youthforia was founded by Fiona Ko-chan based on the idea that makeup should be an extension of skincare. Fiona would eventually appear on an episode of Shark Tank in 2023 and received a $400,000 investment from billionaire Mark Cuban. In August of the same year, Youthforia launched a skin tint serum foundation that the makeup brand claimed was safe enough to sleep in. The problem was that the foundation range was not inclusive enough, with only 15 shades. The darkest one was for a golden brown complexion. In a now deleted TikTok in response to the backlash, she said, "It was always my intention to launch this as a proof of concept to see if people even like the base formula. I thought if the project was such a flop, then we will have to start it over." But like, who launches a makeup line just to prove a concept? I mean, they have test groups for that. Famous makeup content creator Jackie Aina, who has always been an advocate for the visibility of people of color in the makeup industry, said that if you're gonna launch a non-inclusive makeup line, you better not even try in the first place.
A proof of concept, see if people even like.
I'm a brand founder myself, and I understand why this woman gave this response, but here's why I'm gonna tell you it's also bullshit, because it just is. Because it just is. Like, you honestly don't think Black people have not heard this same response for how many years? So a proof of concept, as she phrased it. And this is not the first of its kind. This is the reason why, when I first started my YouTube channel, I really prioritized this specifically in the beauty industry, why that specifically needed to change. Because what you're inadvertently saying is that anybody that isn't dark skin is the default. And if they like it first, then the rest of y'all will get it, okay? The rest of y'all will get it. You're basically saying that everybody else is an afterthought. Because let's even use the worst case scenario. You're a small business, right? You cannot just launch a product for everybody. I get it. Products cost money. Development costs money. Everything costs money, especially when you own a brand. But here's what you do. You don't. Like, keep that shit in the back stock. We don't want it. I don't want it unless you're either willing to do two things. One, make it available to everyone. And if you can't, as a small business, it is okay, and that's understandable. What you need to do, and I looked at your website, you aren't doing this, by the way. What you need to do instead, if you can't launch this product for everybody, is make sure there's an even ratio of light shades, an even ratio of medium shades, an even ratio of dark, and a medium ratio of deep dark.
Fast forward to March 2024, Youthforia releases deeper foundation shades, and the darkest one is straight up black, like jet black.
It's actually pronounced Zach.
TikToker Yumi Afuye was the one who broke the news.
Foundation shade I'm about to show you is worse than any foundation shade scandal you have ever seen. Last two shades in the Youthforia foundation. What is that? It's literal face paint. Is this not a hate crime? Black people are not black. We come in shades of brown. Those are the two darkest, I'm yelling. Those are the two darkest shades. The darkest person that you know has an undertone.
Beauty creator Tony Bravo also broke the news when she tested the product at an Ulta beauty store.
They came out with a new shade, just passed it, and I'm like, let's try it and see what it looks like. This is now their darkest shade, 600. One right before this is 570. That jump is kind of crazy, but let's swatch it and see. Oh, it's literally black. And then we're gonna test the shade right below it. 600 and 570. I guess she said, here y'all go.
In the same week, Youthforia would then send a message to its group of ambassadors saying that there was a confusion and that the shade didn't match anyone in the US, but it did match the skin tone of these two random guys that she met in Dubai. And the funniest thing is that it didn't match their skin tone either. Like, girl. It didn't even match the skin tone of Nidali, a dark-skinned beauty content creator that Youthforia had shared a video of her saying that the shade 600 didn't match her skin tone. It was the shade 590 that actually matched. Then the beauty creator Gloria George released a TikTok reviewing the foundation and has now over 32 million views and has caused an outrage all over social media, rightfully so. And what has caused even more outrage was the fact that a lot of people didn't seem to think that there was anything wrong with Youthforia's jet black foundation, which is scary because a lot of these comments have tons of likes, and not only comments are coming out of this, but also weird TikToks.
Give me a pat. No, a powder for my nose, quick. Thanks. Okay.
Now we're gonna understand that no one on this earth is jet black, despite the crazy comments and the crazy TikToks trying to say so. I mean, there are people who are really dark skinned, but they have something called undertones. It's something that everyone has, especially dark skinned people. And undertones are tones present within our skin. So there are three types of them, warm, cool, and neutral. I'm either neutral or warm. And the funny thing, or rather ironic, is that Fiona herself knows about undertones.
But where it's difficult for a consumer is at matching the right undertone or making sure that it's the right shade.
And yet her darkest foundation has no undertones. You can even see in their ingredients that the foundation has only one pigment within their formula.
But then if we look at their darkest shade, the ingredient list tells a different story. Here there's only one pigment, CI77499, which is just black iron oxide. No other colorants. This foundation literally only has pure black pigment. Here's a close-up if you missed it the first time. And before folks say, oh, maybe it's meant as a mixing pigment, that makes no sense. Anyone who's ever taken an art class will tell you that black is a terrible pigment to mix with. because it just makes things gray and muddy.
And this shows how much the brand doesn't really care about dark-skinned people. And no, I don't think it's rage bait because I think they fully believed that they were trying to do something. I mean, the difference between the 590 and the 600 shade is crazy. Beauty creators tested out the foundation. They mixed it with white to see the hue range, and you could see that you turn into a gray kind of looking foundation, which is like, no one is gray, so.
This is black face paint. This is the darkest shade of the Youthforia foundation.
I think everyone's being a little dramatic. I'm gonna show you how to use that shade. So first take the black paint, the foundation. Yeah, it's really nice and dark. We're gonna do a drop and then mix a lighter shade. Mix it really good. And if it's still too dark, add another shade of foundation. If you're struggling to match yourself, it's really a you problem. You just don't know how to mix the right pigments. Look at this beautiful shade of skin tone gray I created. You're telling me nobody uses this color?
And just because something looks black doesn't mean it actually is black. I mean, we gotta understand that lighting can change one's complexion a lot. Historians have literally said that there was a racial bias built in photography because photography wasn't really made with black people in mind. Back then, black people would either come out ashy or straight up black in photos. I mean, even today with social media apps, filters sometimes either lighten up dark-skinned people or they just don't even capture them.
If you're black, nothing for you, but if you're white, there's something for you.
Interesting enough, Youthforia wasn't the first makeup brand to have this kind of controversy surrounding them. The makeup brand Tarte, back in 2018, released the Shape Tape foundation line with no dark shades, facing a massive backlash back in the day. And after we learned about all this struggle that black people face, especially black women, to push these brands to be more inclusive and actually advocate to more makeup brands targeting black people and women of color, it's really absurd to see that we in 2024 are, facing this kind of issue with Jack Black paint given to us as an option. I mean, nowadays you shouldn't even bother to release a brand that is non-inclusive. We have tons of makeup brands, especially celebrity brands. Like just this month, like literally a week ago, Serena Williams just released her own makeup line. We have tons of makeup brands, and if you're gonna release a makeup brand nowadays, you gotta be inclusive and you gotta bring us something new. If you're gonna release something, you better bring us something revolutionary, groundbreaking. If your makeup brand is just about makeup you can sleep with, but only the white people can use it, it's not only important to have a makeup brand that is inclusive to its customers, but also inclusive behind the scenes, like in your team, right? Behind the scenes, making the production, going to testing and mixing in the chemicals and the ingredients. You gotta be inclusive. There's no other choice. At this point, it should be mandatory, right? And I don't feel bad for the backlash that Youthforia has been getting. I heard that their product is now being taken off the shelves, and it's well deserved. Well, that's all I have for today, bratties. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Take care, and bye-bye. And then, well, he ghosted me.